This week in post, unscripted, uncut, it's a live edit. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In Post. Before I get into today's live edit, if you missed it, I launched a book last week all about Photo Raw. So if you are a Photo Raw user and you're looking to get a jump start or get familiar with all the different aspects of the package, head over to my website, check it out. Less than $10, you'll have it in your pocket. And I hope you like it. So today we have a live edit. So live, kind of in air quotes here, since I'm not broadcasting live. But what I mean by a live edit is we're going to take a photo that I've taken recently, in this particular case, but I've not done any editing to it whatsoever. So you're going to see everything that I do from beginning to end as it happens. And we'll just see where this takes us. Sometimes it comes out with a good image. Sometimes it comes out with an okay image. And there's usually some twists and turns and backtracking across the way. But that's part of what I want to share with you is not every photo is, I know exactly what's going to happen. And I know it's going to be great when it emerges on the other side. You really get to see there are some thought processes. There's some choices and decisions that get made. Sometimes they work out. Sometimes they don't. But in the end, I think that we all tend to learn from this type of event. So with that, let's get into today's photo. All right, so first thing here, full disclosure, as I started to edit this and record, there were way too many dust spots on my sensor. I'm gonna hit the Q key here, and they're just, spackled all through the sky. So you're not gonna watch me erase dust. I've done that on other videos. I use the visualized spots and I use dehaze to help find all the spots. There's a ton of them. I'm due to clean my camera. So let's move on to cropping and straightening because this is a crooked photo. So we'll grab our crop tool, just draw a little angle line right along the horizon there. That's good. And then for the crop, I want to tug this in and really make it about the hut. This is what I want my subject to be. So getting relatively tight on it. Something like that. I don't want to get too close to the edge of this main post, but this is roughly on a third, which is pretty good. Okay. Next, we got some exposure to do. We got white balance, we got tone. This feels underexposed for sure. Let's increase exposure some. Not a lot. I'm going to stretch more of this histogram out with the whites and black points. So let's bring whites up really high. And matter of fact, let me hit the option key and see where I'm going to blow out. Okay, back that off a little bit. There we go. Bring the blacks down. Got a good black point there. And we'll add some contrast. Matter of fact, I'm going to switch to black and white mode with the V key. Looking contrast, certainly need to open up the shadows some. And right now I'm kind of after a relatively flat looking photo because I can do my detail and my contrast work a little bit later. All right, so that's pretty okay. Clarity, let's bring clarity up. And I'm really watching the sticks of the shack. That's what I want. Now, as I shot this, I certainly thought black and white. I thought a minimal composition. So I'm going to hit that V key again and kind of keep looking at it in a black and white fashion because I think that's going to work better for this photo. Right. White balance. Let's revisit white balance here. Haven't touched that yet. What about this sea foam out here, the churn, that being white? That's better. I'm okay that the sky gets completely blown out. As a matter of fact, I might even amplify that and push the whites a little higher. Can't do that with the white point because I'm losing detail in this particular area, but we might be able to do that in our black and white controls. Let's hit auto on that and see what we get. So that darkens some things there. The background is going to be mainly blue, right? So we hover this little double-headed arrow, we'll see blue get highlighted. And if I increase the brightness of that, that's going to make the sky whiter, which is good. And I like that for this photo. And while we're paying attention here, let's go back to the tone curve and add a little more contrast with the curve. I'm going to do a gentle S curve. I'm going to pull down the shadows some. And then I'm going to bring the highlights back up into range here. Let's see, maybe around there. I am having a little difficulty adjusting this curve. That looks very dark. Let's not take that down too far. How about here, and then bring it back up here. And I might want to revisit the shadows slider now. Open that up a little bit more. That curve's a little dark. Let's take that off a little bit. That's better. Let's take a look at some detail here. So this is, what's this? This is the corner right here of the shack. That's good. Let's do our masking first. I don't need to have any additional detail out in the sky, and even not so much in the water per se. The masking will show me where detail will get applied. And then can bump up radius, the detail slider itself. And incidentally, holding down the Option key, you get these interesting views of what exactly is getting the additional sharpening. And let's punch that up pretty far. I like my black and whites to have really strong blacks, really strong whites, and quite a bit of detail. Now, what else do we need going on here? I'm going to go back to our basic panel and still play around a little bit more with clarity and the shadows sliders. Let's see, because this post is getting a little dark for my tastes. And if I play around with the exposure, okay, I can recover a little bit of that. That's better. That's a little more balanced. Let's take a quick before and after look so far here. So this is before, and this is after. I think it's a lot of a much stronger photo. Let's look at gradients now. And okay, exposure. Actually, let's start with around that. A little bit drop of exposure. I'm thinking of the foreground. And let's go ahead and drag something like that up across more or less the rocks of this scene. If I bring the highlights down some, that's going to take the edge off of some of the salt and whatnot that's sitting up on the rock faces there. Exposure low is okay. Let me just do a quick before and after. See what that's doing for us. All right, that's start getting it a little bit too much. Let's do that. Now, what if I warm it? Play around with warm versus cool. What's that doing for me? I can cool that down a little bit. This, it's different when you're looking at it in black and white for sure. But the point is, I want that foreground to be a little underemphasized and the structure itself to be the main subject here. I'm going to grab the brush, choose Erase, and that is to just bring back some of that tone into the pillars here. Let's show the overlay so I can make sure I'm getting all the stuff that I need to. I'm going to have to get that one over there. And even these ones in the background. Okay, and I don't have to be perfect on this. This is not an exact science, and those aren't super important details. Maybe only this one in the very front because that's prominent in the framing. All right, turn that off. Let's take a look at before and after on that gradient. All right, that's good. It's taking a little bit of the edge off there. And now that as I look at this front pillar, I may grab another brush here, go the opposite. We'll take exposure up a little bit. And let me lower my brush. And we'll just kind of brush that in there just to add a little bit of, I have an auto mask on. Let's turn that off. Do that one more time. All right. Ease that up ever so slightly. And so just before and after, that's a subtle change, but it's opening up the shadows on that front pillar a little bit. Okay, now, last couple of things. I got some distractions. This thing over here is ugly, and I don't particularly like what's going on in this corner either. This left-hand corner, I'm hitting R key for the crop again. I might be able to minimize that with just an adjustment on the crop. That's less of a problem. This is still a problem. Now, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to give Lightroom a shot. I don't usually like to use Lightroom for large amounts of retouches. The single spot removals are pretty good. It's hit or miss when it comes to some of the other ones. We'll give it a try. So Q key, make this pretty big. Healing mode, we'll start with that. I'll sweep across and see what we get. Yeah, not really that good. It didn't make a good selection point. Let's see how much I can coax it into place. Let's try over here. That's actually getting pretty reasonable. One of those, if you weren't watching me do this, you wouldn't necessarily know I had done it, and that's kind of the goal with retouching. Let's see if, oh geez, Lightroom, I'll never understand why you choose certain spots. And maybe that one I can blend in. It's so-so. You know what? Let's try one more time. Get rid of that one as well. And I'll try to take care of both of this little smudge over here and this patch of white at the same time and see if I can get a better blend between the two of them. Let's see. That's closer. That's actually that's acceptable to me. That looks a lot better. All right, zoom back out, and I think that's really about it. Let me close that. So, all right, where I am in my head now is I like what I have. I'm still a little bothered by that left-hand corner, and I would like to have some more punch on those wood portions of this the scene, the shack itself. And I'm thinking about going into effects for that because I've got better masking tools. At least I like the brushes better in On1 than I do in Lightroom. I have a little more control with them, at least. Well, I guess maybe I'm just used to them. And also I've got better retouching tools. I've got the Content Aware Perfect Eraser. I might be able to do something with that lower left corner. I'm going to bring this over into effects and finish it up there. So I'll see you on the other side. All right, we're on On1 effects, so let's go ahead and get that dynamic contrast thrown on there. All right, so filter, dynamic contrasts, and I already like what it's done to that shack. I'm going to increase the smalls some, and then I need to remove it from the foreground. I don't want to amplify the rocks anymore. So let's start by just masking it away with linear bottom, drop that on there. And actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do this. We'll take care of two birds, one stone and all that, because I don't want it on the ocean in the background either. So what this has done, if I press the O key, see I'm removing the contrast from the lower part of the scene. So we can see before and after, and you're going to see that shack pop up. Everything else is not changing. I got to paint this back in for the rest of these stalks here. So we can do that. Got our masking brush. I'll set it to paint in, and I will turn on the perfect brush because that'll help for the top parts. It's not going to help so much for the bottom as we get into the rocks, so I have to be very careful. And let me see, I'll change the overlay mode. So, in the mask view mode to red. So when I press the O key now, we'll see the red being the mask. So one sweep down there. Let's lower our brush. Get through in here like that. Same thing for this guy. I'm less worried about getting a perfect mask for the background or midground portions of the hut, but this foreground one is going to be very important. That's prominent. We want to make sure we get very cleanly on the edges. And once I get the edges looking good, I can turn off the perfect brush and make sure the center of it is all looking nice. So I'm just continuing to slowly reduce the brush size as I get closer. I'm letting the perfect brush make that tone selection underneath it. And as long as I'm careful with where I paint, I won't have anything bleed over into the rocks. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do a Command or Control R. That turns off the perfect brush, so I can now just get the rest of these little specks there. All right, I might as well go ahead and do the same thing in the back here. All right, great. Command R again, turn it back on. Let's go ahead and take care of this one. And hopefully you're not getting too bored by this. All right, Command R to turn it off. A little bit smaller, just paint through inside this. May as well do this one too. And you know, normally for really fine work like that was a mistake. I'd zoom in at 100% and get everything tip top. But in the interest of keeping this video remotely short, I'm not going to do that. I've had some pretty epically long live edits in the last couple of times I've done these. We'll try to keep this one under 20 minutes. It's a goal. We'll see how it goes. All right, last little bit there. All right, let me O-key, turn that off. And here's our before and after. And now we can actually have a little fun with dynamic contrast. We can punch it up a little bit higher because it's only really affecting the shack. There's nothing in the sky to add contrast to. It's a big solid swath of white. All right, that looking good. Now, last but not least, we have this lower left corner. Let's see what the perfect eraser comes up with. If I were to say, I don't want that little puddle. I'm not sure what it's going to do here. Actually, it's not terrible. I'm going to undo that and be a little more particular about where I brush this time and see if it picks in some darker rock. There we go. Nice. Very well done. Oh, I should have come in here to do this part earlier. And now, now I'm going to get a little bit more fun. We'll get rid of that one there too. And hopefully it's going to choose to smooth it out. And that one wasn't as good. I guess I got that little sliver of water there that I didn't pick up the first brush. Let's go ahead and try that again. That's nice. That's better. Oh, that's way better. All right, cool. I'm not going to do a vignette on this because I don't want to darken any of that bright blown out sky. I think I'm going to call this one done. I'm pretty happy with it. So there we go. I'm going to call this one a win for a live edit. I think the ending photo looks pretty nice. Let's take a quick look at what we went through. So this here is the photo in Lightroom where all that we did was crop and level it, took care of dust spots. Then a bunch of work, brighten things up, contrast, detail, obviously black and white, did some cleanup in the lower right corner to get rid of a distraction. And then finally brought it over into On1 Effects, a little more punch and grit on the hut itself and some cleanup on the left-hand edge. So that ends up with being our final photo. And so, yeah, as I look at this, gosh, I might even push the whites a little bit more to completely blow out that sky. So that might be a little tinkering after I'm done recording here. But otherwise, I think I'm pretty much finished with this photo. For a tip of the week, I suppose it's the right tool for the right job. I should have just jumped into effects once I decided I'm going to do that larger cleanup in that right-hand corner. I got through it in Lightroom, but I think it would have been faster, quicker, easier to do it with a content-aware eraser like I had in Effects. And it turned out that it was working so well, I did a more cleanup that I wasn't actually planning to do with that last little puddle on the left-hand edge. So, right tool for the right job. Don't waste your time trying to beat something into submission when it's just really not designed to do that level of work. And that's going to do it for this week in post. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please share this with a friend, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Send in your questions. I want to get some more post-processing questions. I've gotten some questions for the counterpart of this show in the field. Got some field questions to work through. Need some post-processing questions, so send them on in. You'll get an answer in a day or two, and your question might be featured on a future episode of In Posts. And most often they are, because it's the idea engine for this show. It really helps out. And it helps me know that this is a two-way conversation. So please send in those questions. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport. Happy shooting. Unscripted, unedited, it's a live edit. It's too many edits. I need to edit that. Into Perfect Effects, listen to me. Perfect Effects is a dead product. I keep saying it. Q&A episode of In the Post. It's like In the Field, only better. Man, Marty's gonna have a field day with all these outtakes.